Hello and welcome to the May Mytech U, where we're going to be talking about taking your process to the next level. We are fortunate to have Michael Frascone and Emily Schwarzkopf here, our two process gurus at Mytech, leading us through how they've evolved process at Mytech and through their experience in other organizations. And I'll leave it over to them to hand out, but by all means, a couple housekeeping items. For those that are watching, please use the questions section of your GoToMeeting control panel, and we will do our best to interject those questions in the presentation, or if we're not able to, we will make sure to follow up with you afterwards offline. So with that said, I'm excited to hear Michael and Emily, because you'll find that they're both very passionate about process. That will definitely come through in their conversation. But so Michael, I'll hand it over to you and Emily to introduce yourselves and then kick it off.
Okay, thanks Nathan. Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking your time to join us today. As Nathan said, you have me and Emily on the line here. I am the Process Improvement Director at Mytech. I've been here for about 3.5 years. I have an MBA in Process Management and a Six Sigma Green Belt. And Emily joined us almost a year ago. Emily, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. I have been at Mytech Partners for approximately a year. I have about 10 years of experience in the professional world in both project management and process improvement. And here at Mytech, I kind of have a dual role. I'm 50% internal process improvement and 50% onboarding project manager. And today I'll be sort of adding on to Michael's process talk to talk specifically about our new client onboarding process.
All right, thanks Emily. Let me just get started. Here we go. So what we're going to talk about is really what is the process strategy? How do we approach process here, and how do we engage the folks, and how does process get managed? And as Emily stated, she will round it out with just a review of our onboarding process, which really turns out, if you read the blurb about today's event, what our onboarding process is, it's really that process that sort of connected everything together. Following our process strategy and management of compliance and continuous improvement, this sort of became that one process that really threaded it together and tied to our vision. So I'm looking forward to having Emily talk a little bit about that. But before we get to that, let's talk about our strategy and engagement model. So in our strategy of process, we have some simple requirements that you really, if you are inspired to go into a process endeavor, these requirements are simple, they seem logical, but it makes sense, and it really is very, very important for the success of any process engagement. The first thing that I always talk about is the requirement. You know, you need management support. Here at Mytech, we have support from the board of directors all the way down to every single employee in the organization. I know that sounds big, but it's true. If you don't have leadership support to provide the authority and direction, it is a difficult challenge. So with management support, we have moved forward pretty well. Identifying who will manage and own processes, of course you need an owner. Typically smaller organizations tend to have, you know, people that are tasked with it as an extra deal. When I joined Mytech, we were only 32 employees, and I was hired full-time to manage process as the owner to drive it, and I think that really is critical in managing it well. And when you see how we capture, collect, and deploy process and how we maintain them, you'll understand that it does require ownership.
Michael, let me interject real quick. Let me interject real quick on that one point, because I can't emphasize that enough, and just from my own personal experience, and I'm sure that, you know, anyone on the line right now or watching in the future can relate, that if you're a manager and you're trying to run a department or have P&L responsibility or just you know, other primary tasks, process is something that I know that, just speaking for myself, I always wanted to do, but it always seemed to be that back burner issue. Right, so it's not that someone else, that you might not have the competency or anything like that, because understanding how to, like, you know, map some of those things out was definitely something that I wanted to be able to do as a manager, but I just never got it done. And so that was, I think that, Michael, your point of saying someone to really manage and own the process, hopefully connects with several people, because I know that was definitely my biggest obstacle. So thanks for
Absolutely. Thanks. Yes, and as you can see, critical, right? And the other piece is the tools. Now we have a tool that I use, and you'll see the deployment of that tool and what it looks like. But that's our process modeling tool. There are also other tools you have to consider that you're using for all of your processes. You have ERP systems that come into play, quoting tools, Excel spreadsheets that you might use. You have your process modeling tools, whether you're using what we use or if you're using Visio or whatever it is. You have to have consistency and have everything in alignment. These are the tools we're going to use. This is how we're going to use them. We use SharePoint as another tool to deploy our process, and I'll show you that shortly. And you also need to have tools in place for change management. How do you manage the change? The whole point of process strategy is that you don't want to develop a process and put it on a shelf and cross your fingers and hope that people are engaged and using those processes. So I will get into what all of this looks like in the tactical nature of how we collect and manage our processes. But keep in mind that change management has to be very effective and very easily changed. So I'm going to continue on how to do it, right? So this is really, you understand the strategy that you have the buy-in, you have the tools. How do you start and where do you start? And this is based on a lot of great experience we've had here at Mytech in deploying our process methodology. The first thing we had to do, when I joined Mytech 3.5 years ago, there were very little documentation available on any of the processes. There might have been a few documents here and there on shared drives, so we really had to kind of start from square one with this same endeavor. We had management buy-in, we had some tools identified. Now what do we do? So what we really had to do, following our entrepreneurial operating system, that's what that EOS is, that's based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman, and it really is talking about creating goals that are 90 days in advance, and you throw the pebble 90 days out and you work your way up to it. That was the same methodology that we took into play with our strategy around process. The only way we were going to be effective was to identify a core process at a time by quarter and begin the work. Well, 3.5 years later, we have quite a list of our processes and in a lot of detail. But the whole point is, don't go at it trying to solve everything all at once. You need to start at high level, one at a time, and take your time and worry about the details and the tasks later. You will prevent a lot of paralysis in that development if you just stick to the basics to begin with and identify the process, working through one at a time until you have satisfied and buy-in with all stakeholders, and I'll get into that in a little bit. As far as identifying the goals for the processes, I think that's just inherent. You need to have why. To get buy-in with your staff and everyone, you need to show them, why are we doing this? What is the efficiencies we're creating, or what issues are we resolving? What throughput are we going to measure? What is the metric? Are we achieving our service level targets in this process, or what are we doing to improve them? So having that in mind, going forward, you're going to be very successful. It's very basic, it's very simple, and you follow through. Let's talk about process development and engagement a little bit. Again, as I said, we got to keep it simple. You can't solve every problem out of the gate. So what my methodology is to really start out, so what is it we're actually doing? As I said, when I started at Mytech 3.5 years ago, we really didn't have documented visibility as to how operations was functioning, as far as how are we getting requests and turning them into invoices eventually, right? So how does that all fit together? We needed to sit down and look at the processes by what I call that line in the sand, right? We needed to be able to say, here's where we are today, and when you actually do that as is process modeling, you're going to naturally make some improvements. That just is inherent, but do not go into this thinking you're going to solve every problem out of the gate, otherwise you will stall. Again, having an owner, pushing it, you're going to be fine. One of the things that Emily and I are both very accountable to is, we have to proactively go out and solicit feedback from folks. We also, and I will show you in our change management model how we can allow any user in the process to submit requests for review or changes. But it's also on us to proactively ask, how's this process going? What's going on? And sometimes, and quite often, as process owners in the organization, Emily and I frequently get approached on when there's a problem. Oh, this invoice is wrong, or this product, did something goofy and we don't know why. the fact that we have intimate knowledge of the processes and tools, we have to, throughout the organization, we are really fast at root cause analysis, and it is quite amazing at how quickly we can turn around and answer to any manager in the organization and say, this is where your problem happened and this is what caused it. And if there's a change to the process, we can make it then and there. It's really, really amazing that you can get this at both sides, from the users pushing the changes forward as well as us soliciting feedback. So we seem to do a lot of ground cover that way. I'm going to switch now. So how do we process model? This is really quite simple, and it's really an amalgamation of ITIL and Six Sigma. I've been working under that umbrella for many years. So what we have kind of developed out of all this is really some simple modeling steps that keep you present in your mind as you're developing process about how the cycle works in the organization to actually encourage this engagement and constant change to keep things up to date, meaning what we do, what we say we do, we actually do. And so this continuous improvement piece at the end is really the critical piece. At the beginning, you know, we start with discovery workshops, and I'll sort of explain what each of these are. But discovery workshops, you know, you're just collecting the information. How do you document it? Then how do you maintain compliance, right? And then move into continuous improvement. So I've got this simple cycle here, and you have a copy in the GoToMeeting of this handout, as well as Emily's handout that's coming. So let's talk about these discovery workshops. They can vary. I mean, it depends on what the issues are, but I think when you're starting simple, you just need to figure out how are we doing things today, right? So as your discovery begins, you want to know, how are people doing their part? How are they engaging? How are they doing their piece of the process? And you ask simple questions, and this is just 4 questions, simple guideline, but it really will drive the right information. So you're asking the users these questions, you know, what are the bottlenecks? And I'll tell you, it would be interesting to ask a manager what their perception is of the bottleneck, and then you go and ask a user. You might get a lot of clarity there, but it's really great to include the users for a couple of reasons. Asking them these questions and engaging them at how we're going to solve this and document this correctly, you're going to have automatic buy-in from the users, and it is very easy to see that. So as you ask these questions, you are going to, you know, what causes frustration, what's working well, and finally, you know, what's the handoff? I mean, of course, in process, I think of it as a relay race, and you're handing off a baton, right? How does that handoff work, and what is the detail in that handoff? And of course, we spend a lot of time observing. You know, these, again, goes to the process ownership. I really need to learn as the process owner how everybody does everything when it comes to the processes. And it also gives us a good bird's eye view of the entire organization. Once you get through collecting all of those discovery, you can do documentation. Now, with the tool that we have the ability to produce physical output. As you can see here, I've got some guides laying on my desk that I just took a picture of, and these are, you know, cheat sheets, if you will, pieces of the process based on the roles that are assigned. And here's some cheat sheets, print it out, put it on your desk, hang it up. It's always helpful. And also we have a wall at the end of the hallway here where I like to put up all of our fresh new processes, even though we have a website that we use on SharePoint. And I'm going to pull that up now. Just back out for 1 second. I'm going to move it over here. So this is our new process site. We have just updated to this version of Office 365. So our SharePoint site, it was time to just do a little cleanup, and I now have all of our operational processes grouped by area of the business. And I have some internal things that we do internally, as well as how we handle change management, which is an initiative I am working on right now. But the output of these processes, it's about the documentation, right? You saw my slide of all of the physical handouts, but this is also where anybody can access the process at any time, and that's really the whole point, make a process very accessible and easy to access to the staff. So when we look at, you know, our service delivery model, for example, so if you are one of our customers, you engage in our service delivery model and how we escalate issues and get them back through to resolution within our service level target. So all all of our processes are contained within. Any documentation the staff needs is actually linked right at the top of the process, and you can read the flow and follow the questions and go ahead and drill down. The tool that we use has a really good functional drill down capability, whereas if you're using Visio or Word documents, it's not quite the same. This is really robust, and I recommend if anyone on this call are ever interested in seeking out process modeling tools, I would be happy to be a resource for you. I've done a lot of research in this area. But this particular tool, like any, should have customizable notes and drill down and be very easy to train up. The training for this particular tool takes about a day or less, and a lot of tools out there I have investigated. It's 2 to 3 weeks training, and that's a lot of time away from work that people just can't afford. But if you look at some of these drill downs, you can just click and you can put in all kinds of information in the actual tasks and steps of things that the user has to go through. So the tool itself is really robust and really functional, and we have access for it. One of the things we do provide is in our internal, for change management, we encourage employees to submit change requests, and we do that through our ERP system, and it's a ticketing system that will raise a service request, much like our customers raise a service request for us to help them with something, whether they need a printer to print or something. But same thing with process, we manage in the same way. As I stated earlier, we want people to engage and submit requests as well as we go out and solicit that feedback. I'm just going to, for Emily's sake, I'm going to open her onboarding managed services process. I'm going to pass it down there for a second. But that is really documentation and deployment, whether it's tangible or online. Then we move into, once we have the documents online and they're out there and active and people are engaged with them. Notice I use the word engage, not follow. I believe that following process implies that you're putting on blinders. This is about helping people become very good critical thinkers about how they do their job, and they have direct access to us as process owners to help them fix and streamline and create efficiencies. We get several hundred change requests a year from users, and that tells me that they are fully engaged. That is a really good metric for us.
Michael, I just want to, forgive me for interjecting, I just want to comment on that, you know, again, those who are, you know, managers and are responsible for training people as well as helping them become autonomous so that you're not having to minimize the amount of time you're investing in the time that you have to invest in their training. It's important to invest in training, but this is a tool that I can say as a manager has helped me in the fact that part of my team is able to follow these instructions, and they're able to independently and autonomously engage with process. And then from a change management perspective, I'm able to be looped back in to approving or saying, yep, that's an alignment, that's, you know, that's a great idea, that definitely works, and connecting. So it gives me an opportunity as a manager to not have to be involved in every single change, and my team gets up to speed faster whenever a new process gets rolled out because they have reference material and it's already documented. So it's a huge help to me as a manager, not just from a consistency of execution, which is also great for your customer experience, right? But it's also about, as a manager, it's definitely helped me with working with my team and their overall improvement engagement as well. So just wanted to comment from a manager's perspective on a couple of those points, Michael, so thanks.
No, thank you, Nate. Always love to hear that kind of stuff. So into the final stages, right? And it's actually when you go through discovery and documentation, that's really, once that's done, the true work actually begins when you're talking about compliance and continuous improvement, right? The first time you deploy process, it's that line in the sand, as I mentioned earlier. But compliance and continuous improvement are really the key piece here as to where I talk about engagement rather than following the process. While the process owner, myself or Emily, we are responsible to audit and review them for accuracy and managing change requests. We, again, soliciting feedback, managing versioning control is one thing we do to know that when so it's like a service issue. If the ticket is raised, we have the change request version that corresponds to that change request, and it's a simple thing to do, easy to teach. The accountability. When we watch the process and we look at issues and people come to us and say, why did this invoice tip over? What was wrong with it? Well, then we can then go back to the responsible party and say, hey, what happened here? And ask for accountability as to why it did not occur the right way and what is it we can do to help change it. And it's really a phenomenal engagement. It's really good dialogue. We also have to make sure that, as you saw, we have this really simple SharePoint site. You have to be able to have your process deployment documentation easily accessed and very easy to change. So this tool, again, if you're out shopping for tools, how easy is it to use, right? How easy is it to update? What are the steps that it takes? Because a lot of times there's a lot of resource required to make changes to something that robust, but this is actually a simple tool and it works really well. But it is so that the sooner we can always match the reality, the more we stay in compliance. Okay? So my final slide here, I want to just kind of make this statement because this is really how we ended up with Emily owning the onboarding process, and it really has driven such tremendous feedback around the customer experience, which is our vision. So as we had all of these core processes coming into play, we had a lot of dialogue about perfecting this client experience. What is it? Our vision is we provide the best IT experience in North America. Emily will talk a little bit about that, but if your vision is really truly what you're doing and everyone is on board, we are very strong in our vision here at Mytech, so it was a very easy thing that bubbled up naturally through process development that was the one to focus on. We keep that in mind, is this experience, so what is the best IT experience? Where does it start? That question is what drove us to onboarding and say, we really need a focus. And it was very serendipitous, but a year ago at TechPulse, which is our annual event that we share with one of our competitors, I met Emily. She was in the audience of this presentation, and we had a great discussion, and it was a perfect fit for someone to come in and actually engage at that level and take that experience and really own it. It really has changed us, and I really think you're going to enjoy hearing what Emily has to say. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Emily. So thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks so much, Michael. I actually see that we have Mark from Saranda on this call, and this is one of our customers who we onboarded. We're actually in the process of onboarding as we speak. So welcome, Mark. I'm so glad you were able to join us, and hopefully you can kind of this can give you some visibility into the process behind what you've experienced, and I hope to get some feedback from you when the onboarding is complete, just about what went really well, what we can improve on, because we always are in continuous improvement mode here at Mytech. So I wanted to really take the process theory, which Michael laid out for you today, and put it into more tactical terms. I'm going to use onboarding as an example of applied process methodology, and I've really lived this experience for the past year or so. So for those of you who are old enough to remember the commercial from the 80s, I'm not just the president of the Hair Club for Men, I'm also a client. So anyway, a little corny humor for you. I wanted to start by just telling you what onboarding is. I know when Michael and I were first talking about this position, and he mentioned half of the job would be onboarding project management, I wasn't sure what he meant by onboarding. So really it is the experience of a prospect becoming a client, and sometimes it's simply just a managed services contract implementation. So that might be a new client, that might be, we've had a few acquisitions of other IT companies, and we typically will convert those clients from the former company's agreement to a Mytech agreement. So that would be our conversions. Or sometimes it's simply a renewal of an existing agreement. And since the onboarding process has only been around for, I'd say probably 2 years or so. We have some clients who've been with us for many, many years, and when they go to renew their agreement, we're going ahead and giving them sort of a version of onboarding just to make sure that they're really hitting the highlights of this benefit that we're now providing to our clients. So Michael kind of talked about you need to think about the why. Why onboarding? Why did we choose to kind of invest in this area of the business, now that we have a lot of our processes documented and kind of in play. And it really comes down to our vision. So as Michael mentioned, our vision is to provide the best IT experience in North America. I know a couple of years ago, the vision was to provide the best IT solutions in North America. Now, can you see how just changing that one word really changes what we're really aiming at? It's not just about giving our customers the best server for their environment. It's much more all-encompassing about their whole experience with us, with engaging with us, with support and IT leadership and that sort of thing. So onboarding really bridges a lot of our departments and solves a lot of kind of global problems that we've always been wanting to improve upon. So that's really kind of the driver behind why onboarding. The purpose is really to educate our clients on how to get the best value for their dollar when it comes to their managed services agreements. We found that even though our primary contact might really understand what Essentials 9x5 is all about, but we found that some of our customers who had been on that sort of agreement, the end users maybe didn't understand that that means you get unlimited remote support Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So rather than reaching out to us for IT support, there were times when they felt timid to do so because they thought they might get a bill. So here's an example where I think Mytech is really different from, I don't know, a lot of the vendors that I've worked with, in that we really are trying to help you and your end users to engage with us and really let us know what's happening so that we can fix the problems. Another main thing that we're trying to get out of onboarding is really just proactive communication to really ensure alignment with our customers. So a lot of this we were formerly handling kind of reactively, and that maybe caused a little bit of customer friction based on them just maybe not understanding all of the parameters of what they purchased. We would get questions, hey, why did I get a bill for this? Or a little bit of confusion. So really, as a company, we were spending time solving problems, not preventing them. And kind of having that work done on the front end, not only is it saving probably some time, but it's really giving our customers a better experience, which is what we're all about. So, Michael, if you can advance the slide, please. Perfect. So I want to talk a little bit about the process development. I want you guys to think about this as kind of an example of that applied methodology, but this could apply to any process within your organization as well. So we went ahead and followed sort of the theory. Some of this happened before my time. My predecessor, Jason Rood, and Michael worked hand in hand to really kind of lay a good foundation for onboarding. They really began with process discovery workshops, and this is, Michael said too, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't try to bite off more than you can chew, right? Just start by documenting what you're doing now, and start real high level. I don't know, those of you who saw the attachments on the webinar, we actually have a PDF of our onboarding process now, and it is quite thorough. And actually what you can't see in the PDF is when you click on any of the stages, there's a multitude of tasks that kind of are listed within. For instance, knock setup begins. What does that mean? Click on the task. So we've really taken it to a whole nother level. Thank you, Michael. But
for those of you, forgive me, Emily, for those of you, just to note, the handouts, in the GoToMeeting control panel, there is a handouts section, and there are 2 handouts that are uploaded that you can download or view if you'd like. So that's what when Emily was referring to the handouts attached, they're actually in the GoToMeeting control panel, so you can grab those there if you'd like.
Perfect. Thanks, Nate. So as I mentioned, we had the discovery workshops. Some of that was it didn't have to be a big formal meeting. A lot of it was just internal conversations about pain points, things that we talked with the sales department, we talked with the technical team, we talked with the network operations center, the finance team, just to find out what are some of the issues that are popping up within the first couple of months of someone becoming a customer, things that we really could try to fix with onboarding. So really what came out of that was we decided to have focus on 4 basic deliverables out of onboarding. So we do technical discovery. So before we even send a quote to a customer, we do sort of an evaluation. And once an agreement is signed, we go back and do additional technical discovery to make sure that we not only understand what's there from a physical infrastructure standpoint, but that we also understand, we interview department heads and power users to make sure that we understand workflows and how you are engaging with the tools that you have and your line of business applications and all of that information that we're going to need to support you when you call in and request support. We then do a technical handoff to our service team. So we give our service team a heads up on, this is our new customer, this is what they do, this is when they're going live, here's an overview of the infrastructure and their workflows. Again, all of this is to make sure that what the day one when somebody calls in, that we already have a really good understanding of who you are and how we can help you. I mean, that being said, there's always a little bit of a dating period in the beginning where we're gathering additional information, but our goal is really to get 80% up front so that, again, that customer experience of onboarding is as seamless as possible. We know it's kind of can be kind of scary to change IT providers, and we really are doing things to make it hopefully effortless for you guys. Another key deliverable is the quality assurance meeting. That meeting typically happens with myself, the account manager, our primary contact, and maybe somebody in the billing department or somebody else who really needs to understand the ins and outs of the agreement. So out of that, we really talk about all the details of what's included, what's billable, down to the level of detail of when are we sending updates to your computers and what do you need to know about when we're patching to your servers, and in the event of an after-hours emergency, how do you want us to handle that? So all of this, again, is meant to make sure that we're having those conversations on the front end so that we know exactly what you want us to do when an issue comes up. And then we also are providing a launch meeting. We really believe that our primary contacts are only as happy as the end users are. And we found historically that a lot of times our primary really understood the agreement, but again, the end user was a little in the dark, especially in some of our larger organizations. Sometimes that message did not get disseminated to everyone. So we do a real brief 30-minute launch meeting, making sure the end users understand who we are, what services available to them, how to engage with support, and then what to expect in terms of service levels, response times, and things of that nature. Next slide, Michael. So then, once the process was developed, you might ask, okay, so once it's documented and it's all thought through, how do you go about launching it and announcing it and that sort of thing? So again, this happened, the initial launch of this process happened a little bit before my time, but I know my predecessor, Jason, once things were thoroughly thought through and planned through, he just started. And it was kind of a version 1 implementation of our new onboarding process. And after I came on board, really the process evolved naturally, just with our collaboration. I actually used to be a primary contact for IT, so and I'm not a technical person, so it was really a great pairing with my my predecessor, Jason Rood, who's very technical. We just have different perspectives, and I think the two of our minds combined, along with our feedback from our customers, has really, I think, evolved this to a next level. We also have used the onboarding process documentation as a training tool. So that really was extremely helpful as the ownership of the process transitioned and I trained, as I took over the ownership of that process. So kind of changing careers, in my mid-30s was a little bit nerve-wracking, but I really, as a new employee, found process documentation to be very, very helpful. I felt like it was at least kind of an anchor of, okay, I'm responsible for this onboarding, and I've got it documented, what needs to be done, when, and by who. So that I just wanted to speak to process in general, how that can really make for a new hire to feel like they really understand what's expected of them and what needs to get done. We actually have decided that our Colorado branch is going to independently implement their onboarding. So this tool, this documentation, again, really assisted in transitioning that the knowledge and the training to those staff as well to really ensure a consistent experience for all of our customers. So again, we've got a line in the sand, as Michael likes to say, about here's what we're doing, and we all are on the same page on that. So Michael, if you can advance to the next slide, I think it's important to think about then, now that we have multiple people implementing onboarding, how do we make sure that we have that consistent delivery? So here's where we're going to talk a little bit about the change management and the continuous improvement. I feel like the more people that we have involved in the onboarding process is a really good thing when it comes to like brainstorming and improvements on the process, especially with everybody unique perspective. But something that we initially had to kind of wrangle in a little bit is, how are we going to go about making these changes in a methodical way so that things aren't abruptly changing, and therefore our data isn't going to be really measurable if it isn't consistent, or you're not comparing apples to apples. And also we want to make sure that, as much as possible, the Denver experience isn't dramatically different from the Minnesota experience, for example. So the way that we are handling that is, I am still the owner of the onboarding process, and everybody else is kind of part of the onboarding team. And unless something is incredibly urgent, this is something that feels, that can't wait for kind of our methodical approach, we go ahead and just have anybody on the onboarding team, whether it's their feedback or client feedback, they send their changes to our internal process change board. So we actually use our ERP for that, but in an organization that's different from ours, you might decide to do that via email and an Excel spreadsheet or something of that nature. But we go ahead and meet internally. We're currently setting it up for semi-monthly to discuss the requests as a team and kind of decide, should we go ahead and make a variance for this Colorado thing because the market is different there. I know there we've got a lot of medical clients. Here we have more kind of financial and automotive clients. So, we want to decide like what should we make variances about, and then make sure that it's documented. Okay, in Colorado you're going to do this, Minnesota you're going to do that. And then ultimately the onboarding owner makes the final approval after the discussion and actually makes the change. And all of this is about version and control, just to make sure that, like I said, that we've got that consistency. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about the onboarding process at all, or if Nate, you want to kind of open things up for questions, or Michael, if you want to speak about anything.
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a couple. I do have a comment just about what you just mentioned, as far as and Michael mentioned earlier, ITIL methodology, or ITIL, which stands for the IT Information Library. It's a methodology that's often employed in the IT space, whether you're an IT department or an IT provider like us. And what one of the mechanisms of change that they call out is called a change advisory board, which basically is what Emily was just describing. So that you have, of course, there's another acronym, a CAB, but a change advisory board that are the people responsible for making the decisions about the changes. So as your organization evolves and you have different people responsible for different areas, that's also nice because then it doesn't have to fall all the way to one person, or like the owner or the GM or the president. It can actually, you can kind of distribute some of the ownership based on authoritative team that is responsible for those respective areas. So I love that we're engaging and using ITIL methodology, because it's a well-proven one, and we found ways to apply it to our world. The last thing I wanted to ask a question, and Emily and Michael, feel free, either one of you, to answer this. But I remember, and Michael, I remember you mentioning something to me as far as we're talking about taking your process to the next level. That's the whole kind of point of this presentation, is saying how do we start process, how do we engage process, how do we improve process. But Michael, in your experience, or Emily, in your experience, what have you found to be where starting from documenting what we have to, or what we're currently doing, to a mature process, let's say, and maybe try and explain what that means and how many iterations you typically have to go through before you reach this better spot, or you know what I mean, more mature spot.
I'd like to address that because that kind of, it's a phrase I've coined in the past and I use frequently. I call it the 6th iteration. And let me just kind of take 1 minute here to kind of set that up. The idea of taking it to the next level, right? When we talk about when do processes really stabilize, and that's that once you have that stability, then you're looking at, on my wrapping up screen, where process is connecting vision to your clients, right? That's where we took it. Once we got that stability in play, then we were ripe for that, taking it to the next level, which is the onboarding experience. That's real detailed, and we've fleshed out so many things, and it's really the thread that connects it. But let me get back to that phrase I said, 6th iteration. What does that mean? Well, when in my experience, and I've been doing this now for almost 20 years, what I find is that you can launch a process, and remember I talked about the as-is as that first time you put it together, that line in the sand. Well, once you do that and you work in that engagement model of change management and continuous improvement, you are going to go through iterative changes. And I have found there's an average, now this is not holding true in every single process, but it gives you the mindset to understand that it takes about 6 major iterations to a project. And what I mean by that is you have had input from stakeholders, and it's not just, you know, a modification to one little line of sentence or something. I'm talking about where you have drawn out your process, you have modeled your process, and people are engaged, and you go through a full iterative change of what are the real efficiencies we need to do. And when you focus on improving that process in that way, you go through about 6 iterative changes and you're stable. Once you're stable, you are then in what we call full process engagement. The process is stabilized, and then you move on to going, okay, how do we connect all of these wonderful vetted processes, right? How are we connecting these to our vision? That is really the highest level you can get to, and you're like, okay, we have stable processes. What is it we do better than, you know, anything? That is our one thing we do. What is the most important thing that can thread that together? And it came out through the vision discussion, and it was onboarding. So now that we have this 6th iteration, let's dig deep on this particular process and make it really polished. That has had the impact that exactly is what you're asking, Nate.
Yeah, thanks. It's been. I know that I've experienced that with our team, and how it's really created clarity, and I believe efficiency, and part of it is, you know, we're all in my opinion, we're all kind of in a people business, right? We're in the technology world, but our people work with your customers, right? So your people work with your customers and their people, right? So really it's about how can we enable our people to work better, to spend more of their time either on the phone or in person, but working with other people. And that's one of the things that process, and like getting to that 6th iteration, that stability point, as you mentioned, Michael, is really what enables, hopefully, in my opinion, what I hope to drive for my team is that it enables our people to spend more time with our customers, right? Instead of worrying about how do I do this, or what's the right way to get this done, or how can I work on changing this or improving this. All those things are defined, and we've gone through all those iterations, and that to me is really the biggest value that I've gotten out of the process, is just enabling the team to focus on the things that they're really best suited to do, which is you know, work with our customers, right? So hopefully that means, again, more efficiency for all the folks on the line or listening later. That's more efficiency for you. You know, being able to maybe serve more customers with the same amount of people because you've figured out some back-end optimization through this kind of engagement. So we're coming up on the last minutes of the presentation, so I guess I wanted to say any final comments or thoughts, Emily or Michael, as we wrap things up and sign off?
All I can say is if anyone wants to reach out to me, email or Emily, we are always happy to engage in a process discussion. So if you want to reach out to us, we love to have that conversation. So please feel free to do so.
Absolutely, I second that.
All right, great. I know the two of you just did a presentation, worked with one of our customers yesterday on process because they were asking for some assistance to get some motivation for their team to understand the value of process. So, you know, we feel that if we all struggle with the similar issues as businesses, and so there are similar solutions. And if we can help each other out, then gosh, we've hopefully made our organizations and our employees happier as well. So. That's why we're interested. You should wonder what's in it for us, right? But that's part of it, right? If we can all work together to make our respective organizations better, our employees happier, our communities better, then we've done our part to make the world a better place. So thank you all very much, those who listened, and Emily and Michael, great job. I always enjoy working with both of you. And this presentation will be available on our website within 24 hours. So thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you.